Welcome back to Royal Secrets Unveiled, and if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because today we're diving deep into one of the most explosive royal stories of 2025 that has everyone talking about Queen Mary of Denmark and her shocking connection to the most controversial woman in Danish royal history. Get ready, because this story has everything: forbidden love affairs, royal scandals, secret children, and a commoner who dared to defy an entire kingdom to become a countess. Picture this: it's 2025 and Queen Mary of Denmark, once an Australian commoner herself, is standing in the grand halls of Frederiksberg Castle participating in a documentary that reveals the untold story of another commoner who shook the Danish monarchy to its very core over 150 years ago. But this isn't just any documentary. This is Queen Mary's bold statement about breaking barriers and challenging royal traditions, and the woman at the center of it all is Countess Danner, a name that still sends shivers down the spines of Danish aristocrats today. But who exactly was this mysterious Countess Danner, and why is her story so explosive that it took over a century for the Danish royal family to fully acknowledge her legacy? Born Louise Christine Rasmussen on April 21, 1815 in the bustling streets of Copenhagen, she was the daughter of a hatmaker, about as far from royal blood as you could possibly get. But Louise had something that would prove far more powerful than noble lineage. She had an irresistible combination of beauty, intelligence, and an unbreakable spirit that would eventually capture the heart of a king and change Danish history forever. Louise's journey to royal controversy began in the most unexpected place: the theater. As a young woman, she trained as a ballet dancer and became a stage actress during a time when such professions were considered scandalous for respectable women. The theater world of 19th-century Copenhagen was a place where proper ladies simply did not venture. But Louise wasn't interested in being proper. She was determined to make her own way in the world using her talents and her wit. Little did she know that her performances on stage would catch the eye of someone who would change her life forever. During the 1830s, while performing in Copenhagen's theaters, Louise encountered Prince Frederik, who would later become King Frederik VII of Denmark. But this wasn't love at first sight. This was something far more complicated and dangerous. Frederik was already married to Princess Wilhelmine Marie of Denmark in what was considered a politically advantageous match. But the marriage was a disaster from the start, filled with scandal and incompatibility that would eventually end in divorce. It was during this tumultuous period that Frederik found solace and genuine connection with the spirited actress Louise Rasmussen. What happened next would scandalize Europe and create a controversy that echoes through Danish royal history to this day. Frederik and Louise began a passionate affair that flew in the face of every royal tradition and social expectation. Here was a future king of Denmark openly consorting with a commoner actress. Not just any commoner, but a woman from the theater world, which was considered barely respectable. The Danish court was horrified, the government was outraged, and the aristocracy was convinced that this relationship would bring down the monarchy itself. But Frederik was different from other Danish kings. He was a man who valued genuine love and connection over political convenience and social expectations. When he became King Frederik VII in 1848, he made a decision that would shock Europe. He wanted to marry Louise despite the fierce opposition from his government and the Danish establishment. The government tried everything to prevent this marriage. They offered Louise money to disappear. They threatened political consequences. They warned of potential uprisings, but neither Frederik nor Louise would be deterred. The solution they found was both brilliant and controversial. In December 1850, Frederik and Louise were married in what's known as a morganatic marriage. This meant that while Louise became the king's legal wife, she would not become queen. Instead, she was given the title Countess Danner, and while she could not pass royal titles to any children she might have, she was officially recognized as the king's spouse. This arrangement satisfied no one completely, but it allowed the couple to be together legally while minimizing the political fallout. The reaction to this marriage was explosive and divided Danish society right down the middle. The conservative establishment and the middle classes were outraged, seeing this as a betrayal of royal dignity and tradition. They viewed Countess Danner as an upstart who had manipulated her way into the royal family through seduction and cunning. Aristocratic ladies refused to acknowledge her at court events, and many government officials treated her with barely concealed contempt. But amazingly, the common people of Denmark had a completely different reaction. To the farmers, peasants, and working classes of Denmark, Countess Danner represented something revolutionary. She was one of them, a commoner who had risen to marry the king through merit rather than birth. The Society of the Friends of Peasants embraced her as a symbol of a new democratic era where talent and character mattered more than bloodline. When the royal couple traveled through rural Denmark, they were greeted with enthusiastic crowds who saw in Countess Danner proof that their own dreams of advancement weren't impossible. King Frederick VII recognized the political significance of his wife's popularity and made it his mission to secure broader acceptance for her. He insisted that she be included in all official ceremonies and state functions. He commissioned magnificent jewelry for her, including a stunning citrine parure created by court jeweler Julius Diderikson that would later become part of royal history. He made sure she was present at important political meetings and even sought her advice on matters of state. Essentially, he treated her as a full partner in his reign rather than just a wife. But the controversy surrounding Countess Danner went far beyond just her humble origins or her theatrical background. There were persistent rumors and whispers about secret children, political manipulations, and hidden influence over the king. Some historians suggest that she may have had a daughter with Frederick VII who was secretly sent away to Britain to avoid political complications. If true, this would mean that the supposedly childless king actually had an heir who was hidden from history to protect the stability of the Danish succession. What makes Countess Danner's story even more fascinating is what she did with her position and wealth. Rather than simply enjoying the luxuries of royal life, she became one of Denmark's first prominent philanthropists. She used her resources to help vulnerable women and children, establishing foundations and institutions that continued long after her death. The Danner House in Copenhagen, which still operates today as a shelter for women facing domestic violence, was founded with her money. She understood what it meant to be vulnerable in a society that offered little protection for women, and she dedicated herself to changing that. When King Frederick VII died in 1863, Countess Danner found herself in an impossible position. She was the widow of a king but not a queen. She had wealth and status but no official role in the new reign under Christian IX. The new royal family treated her with formal politeness but made it clear that her time at the center of Danish royal life was over. Rather than fade into obscurity, Countess Danner doubled down on her charitable work, becoming even more dedicated to helping those in need. The Countess lived for another 11 years after her husband's death, dying in 1874, but her legacy was complicated. Official Danish royal history largely ignored her for decades, treating her as an embarrassing footnote to Frederick VII's reign. Her charitable work was acknowledged, but her role as a royal spouse was minimized. It seemed as though the Danish monarchy wanted to forget that this commoner actress had ever worn royal jewels or influenced a king, but history has a way of refusing to stay buried. Fast forward to 2024 and something remarkable happened. Queen Mary of Denmark, herself a commoner who married into the Danish royal family, began actively working to rehabilitate Countess Danner's reputation and acknowledge her contributions to Danish society. This wasn't just a historical interest, this was a personal mission that seemed to reflect Mary's own understanding of what it means to be an outsider who becomes part of the royal family. In November 2024, Queen Mary attended the unveiling of a monument dedicated to Countess Danner at the Danner House in Copenhagen. But this wasn't just a ceremonial appearance. Mary wore a brooch that had belonged to Countess Danner herself, part of that magnificent citrine parure given to Louise by King Frederick VII over 160 years ago. By wearing Countess Danner's jewelry, Mary was making a powerful statement about continuity, connection, and the valor of women who dare to challenge royal conventions. The culmination of this rehabilitation came in early 2025 when Queen Mary participated in a documentary film about Countess Danner's life created in connection with the major exhibition, Danner of Denmark, at Frederiksberg Castle. This exhibition, which ran from May through November 2025, was the most comprehensive presentation of Countess Danner's life story ever mounted by the Danish royal family. It included personal artifacts, clothing, jewelry, and documents that revealed the full scope of her influence and contributions. But why is Queen Mary so invested in telling Countess Danner's story? The parallels between these two women are striking. Both were commoners who married Danish kings. Both faced skepticism and criticism from traditional royal circles. Both had to prove themselves worthy of their positions through their actions rather than their bloodlines. And both understood that being royal means more than wearing a crown. It means using your platform to make a positive difference in people's lives. Queen Mary's championing of Countess Danner also represents a broader shift in how modern royal families approach their own histories. Rather than hiding uncomfortable or controversial aspects of the past, today's royals are more willing to acknowledge complexity and learn from previous generations. By celebrating Countess Danner, Queen Mary is essentially saying that the Danish royal family is strong enough to embrace all parts of its heritage, including the parts that once seemed scandalous. The documentary and exhibition revealed fascinating details about Countess Danner's daily life at Frederiksberg Castle, where she and King Frederick VII lived as a married couple. Contrary to the image of a scheming actress who manipulated her way to power, the evidence shows a woman who took her royal duties seriously and worked tirelessly to support her husband's reign. She participated in state dinners, hosted foreign dignitaries, and became an informal advisor to the king on matters affecting ordinary Danes. One of the most intriguing aspects of Countess Danner's story is how she navigated the complex world of 19th-century royal protocol without any training or preparation. She had to learn everything from scratch: how to dress for state occasions, how to interact with foreign royalty, how to manage a royal household, how to represent Denmark at official functions. That she succeeded in doing this while facing constant criticism and skepticism speaks to her remarkable intelligence and adaptability. The jewelry that Countess Danner wore, including the pieces now being displayed in royal exhibitions, represents more than just beautiful accessories. Each piece tells a story about her relationship with King Frederick VII and her position in Danish society. The citrine parure that Queen Mary wore to the monument unveiling was specifically chosen by the king to complement Louise's coloring and personality. The warm golden stones were meant to reflect her sunny disposition and her ability to bring light into his often difficult life as a monarch. What's particularly fascinating about the current renewed interest in Countess Danner is how it reflects changing attitudes toward class marriage and women's roles in society. In the 1850s, the idea of a king marrying an actress was scandalous because it violated strict social hierarchies that were considered essential to social stability. Today we celebrate such marriages as examples of love triumphing over prejudice and tradition. Queen Mary's own marriage to then Prince Frederick demonstrates how completely attitudes have changed. The exhibition at Frederiksborg Castle also explored Countess Danner's relationship with the Danish people and how she used her position to advocate for social reforms. She was particularly interested in improving conditions for working women and children, understanding from her own experience how difficult life could be for those without family wealth or connections. Her charitable foundations were innovative for their time, focusing on practical assistance rather than just moral instruction. Perhaps most importantly, the rehabilitation of Countess Danner's reputation represents a victory for women who dare to step outside traditional boundaries. Louise Rasmussen refused to accept that her humble origins should limit her possibilities. She pursued her dreams of performing on stage even when society disapproved. She accepted the love of a king even when it meant facing years of criticism and hostility. She used her position to help others even when the establishment wanted her to remain quietly in the background. The parallels between Countess Danner's story and contemporary discussions about women's empowerment are impossible to ignore. Here was a woman in the 1850s who refused to be defined by other people's expectations, who used her intelligence and determination to create opportunities for herself, and who never forgot her responsibilities to help those less fortunate. These themes resonate strongly in today's world where women continue to fight for equal recognition and opportunities. Queen Mary's decision to actively promote Countess Danner's legacy also demonstrates the power of storytelling in shaping how we understand history. For over a century, Countess Danner was largely written out of official Danish royal history, treated as an embarrassing episode that was best forgotten. But by bringing her story back into the light, Queen Mary is showing how different perspectives can reveal hidden truths about the past. The documentary film in which Queen Mary participated was particularly effective at humanizing Countess Danner, showing her not as a scheming opportunist but as a complex woman who faced extraordinary challenges with courage and dignity. The film included reenactments of key moments in her life, interviews with historians, and stunning footage of the locations where she lived and worked. Queen Mary's narration added a personal dimension that helped viewers understand the emotional reality of Louise's experiences. One of the most touching aspects of Countess Danner's story is her relationship with King Frederick VII himself. Historical accounts describe a genuinely loving partnership between two people who found in each other what they couldn't find elsewhere. Frederick was known as a somewhat unconventional king who preferred informal settings to elaborate court ceremonies, and Louise's theater background actually complemented his personality perfectly. Together they created a more relaxed and accessible royal court that connected better with ordinary Danes. The controversy that surrounded their marriage also reveals the deep class tensions that existed in 19th-century European society. The outrage expressed by the Danish establishment wasn't really about Louise personally, it was about the threat that her elevation represented to the entire social order. If a hatmaker's daughter could become a royal countess, what did that say about the supposed natural superiority of the aristocracy? Their marriage challenged fundamental assumptions about social hierarchy and merit. The fact that Queen Mary chose to wear Countess Danner's brooch to the monument unveiling was particularly significant because jewelry in royal contexts always carries symbolic meaning. By wearing Louise's citrine and diamond brooch, Mary was literally embodying the connection between past and present, showing that she sees herself as part of a continuum of women who have challenged royal traditions. The gesture was both respectful to history and boldly contemporary in its implications. The success of the Frederiksberg Castle exhibition demonstrated that there is genuine public interest in learning about previously overlooked figures from royal history. Visitors were fascinated by Countess Danner's personal belongings, including her stage costumes, her correspondence with King Frederick VII, and the charitable documents that showed the scope of her philanthropic work. Many visitors commented that they had never known this remarkable woman existed despite her significant impact on Danish society. The rehabilitation of Countess Danner's reputation also provides an opportunity to examine how royal families have traditionally dealt with members who don't fit conventional molds. Throughout European royal history, there have been countless individuals who were marginalized, ignored, or actively suppressed because their stories complicated official narratives. By acknowledging and celebrating Countess Danner, Queen Mary is suggesting that the Danish royal family is confident enough to embrace its full complex history. What makes this story particularly relevant today is how it demonstrates the ongoing evolution of royal institutions. Queen Mary's advocacy for Countess Danner shows that modern royalty can be both respectful of tradition and willing to challenge historical injustices. Rather than simply accepting inherited narratives about the past, today's royal families can actively work to ensure that all voices are heard and all contributions are acknowledged. The documentary and exhibition also highlighted Countess Danner's role in advancing women's rights in Denmark. Her charitable work focused specifically on helping women who had been abandoned by society, including unwed mothers, domestic violence victims, and women who had fallen into poverty. At a time when such women were typically blamed for their circumstances, Countess Danner provided practical assistance without moral judgment. Her approach was revolutionary for its time. The impact of Queen Mary's championing of Countess Danner extends beyond just historical curiosity. It sends a powerful message about inclusion, acceptance, and the value of diverse perspectives within royal institutions. By celebrating a woman who was once considered scandalous and inappropriate, Queen Mary is essentially arguing that the strength of the Danish monarchy lies not in its exclusivity but in its ability to evolve and embrace change. The story of Countess Danner also provides insights into the personal costs of challenging social conventions. Despite her official position in royal marriage, Louise faced constant criticism, social ostracism, and political hostility throughout her life. She paid a heavy price for daring to cross class boundaries and marry above her station, yet she never retreated from her position or apologized for her choice. Thanks.